Well, hello folks, welcome back to what must be now part 6 or thereabouts of this series of videos on the R24 and trying to help you get the most out of it. This particular episode is all to do with the rhythm patterns, drum sampler, sequencer function, because they're all related, and I've had a lot of requests to cover how to add rhythm patterns, beats, drum backing tracks, that kind of thing to your song projects. Now I have to confess right off the bat that of everything this device is capable of doing, this is the one function or the one area of the R24 that I use the least. It's the one, if I'm being very honest, that I'm least comfortable with, and as a result I've been if I'm being honest, I've been putting this video off now for quite some time, so I've always managed to find something else better to do. I'm lucky enough to play in a band with a real drummer, and I know not everyone's in that position. I'm lucky enough that our drummer has both an electronic kit and an acoustic kit, and we've used both for recording on the R24 with good results. And so I've not had much need or cause to use the rhythm functions on the R24. Having said that, I have used them, and I've used them when I've been recording some acoustic stuff on my own and laying down multiple parts of acoustic guitar, bass guitar, my vocal, and then a drum track. So I have used them, but only at a very basic level. So I'm going to try and, as much for me as for you, try and break this down, and so to help me fully understand it more and how it all works, and hopefully help you also in understanding how to use that function on the R24. Now, before we start looking at the R24, there's not much point in this video particularly in going through the why that I normally do. Why do you want to do this, and what is it that we're talking about, because it's fairly self-explanatory. It's drums and rhythms primarily, although we're also going to look at loops and samples, which are very closely related. So there's not much point in looking at the why and the what. I'm going to concentrate on this video on the how you actually do it. But before I do that, I think it's very important that you understand a few basic concepts or principles with that sort of underlie using the R24 in this way, because if you don't, then you're going to struggle to get your head around how you build rhythm patterns and drum loops and those kinds of things on the R24. Well, at least in my opinion anyway. So there's a few sort of terms and concepts I want to go through with you. It shouldn't take too long, and then we'll look at how you do the various things on the R24. I'm going to have to refer to my notes as well, I'm afraid, because I have agonised long and hard about putting this video together. I'm going to try my best for you, I promise you that, but I'm not quite sure how it's going to come out, so forgive me. Right, you're going to have to understand that, first and foremost, that the R24, in an abstract kind of a way, is actually two recorders in one. Okay, you have the main recorder that all my videos have been about, and that records, on tracks, as you already know, and that record your vocals or your instruments and so on and so forth. But what you also have built into the R24 is something called the track sequencer. And the track sequencer, really, I think, is actually more like a second recording device that runs in parallel with, or in tandem with, the main recorder. They're both linked. So, for example, if you set a tempo for your project on the main recorder, that tempo will be replicated in the track sequencer, and the two fit together quite nicely. And indeed, they've been designed to work in that way. They've been designed to work together in any given project. Now, the track sequencer, and I really am a total virgin when it comes to loop-based production, sequencers, keyboards, MIDI, all that sort of stuff. I've very little idea, or in fact interest in, if I'm being honest. That whole thing in the 80s just passed me by really, and other than a few Depeche Mode albums, and I've been a bit of a fan of Vince Clarke, and that's about as far as I went. So look elsewhere for all that kind of stuff. But for the R24 purposes, the track sequencer is what you're going to be using to build your rhythm backing track, your drum pattern. And you'll also use the track sequencer for doing loops and those kinds of things. We'll cover that later on. We'll just stick with the rhythm and drum example for now, just to keep things simple. And the way, you'll know from my previous videos, I like to try and visualize things, and it helps me understand them better if I can sort of picture a mental image of something. And from all my reading of the track sequencer on the R24 and the way it interacts with the main recorder, and the way indeed it helps you build your song or your project, I liken it to building a wall. Okay, so if you think of the track sequencer as the thing that puts all your bricks into the right order to build your finished wall. Okay, so your wall is your song, if you want to see it that way. But what you also have to do when you're dealing with rhythms and drums and loops and all that kind of thing on the R24 is you have to make your bricks as well. So you're not just building the wall, you also have to make your bricks. So the first thing you do is you make your bricks, and then the second thing you do is use the track sequencer to put those bricks in an order that's going to give you a decent wall that's going to stand up and last and look good and all that kind of stuff. So I hope that's not too abstract for you really, but what I'm trying to get across to you is this. There's a bit of a process involved here that you have to go through, and even before you start building your bricks, making your bricks, you have to decide what mixture of mortar and sand and gravel and all that kind of stuff you want to use. You don't use that, you don't use gravel for bricks, I know that much, but whatever you use for bricks, you need to decide the blend and the mix you're going to put together to then build your bricks, to then assemble those bricks into a wall. So that's the kind of the visual example on this. It's not a great one, I know, but it helps me sort of understand it a little bit better. So the track sequencer, you're going to need to understand what that does, how to use it, and how it works on the R24. But don't worry, I've got you covered. We're going to look at the track sequencer as we go through the examples on the device. It's easier then to understand. Now, for me, to carry on with the wall analogy and the building analogy, to me, programming drum patterns, loops, rhythm functions, all that sort of stuff on the R24 is a bit like making a song by playing Tetris. Okay, so that's why I've not used it that much, if I'm being honest. It's not terribly intuitive. It doesn't feel to me very organic, although I think that's probably down to a lack of my own full understanding and appreciation of all that it's capable of, because it is a very capable device in that area. So don't be put off. I will persevere, and I would encourage you to do the same, because the trade-off is if you're not lucky enough to have a human drummer, then what's available on here by way of percussion and rhythm parts and all that is very good, it's very capable, as with a lot of things on the device, and I have used it, as I said, myself for acoustic tracks, and I've been reasonably pleased with the results. I'd have been even more pleased with them if I could have spent a bit more time putting them together, but I tended to get a bit fed up. So what we're going to cover is the way I've sort of broken this down for this video is because there's a number of different ways you can build rhythms and drum loops and all that on the R24. So I'm going to show you how to do all of these things, but rest assured, if there's anyone sitting there thinking, well, can I just play the pads along to a song? The answer is yes, and I'm going to show you how to do that. For some of you sitting there thinking, well, all I want is a few built-in rhythms and I want to apply them and throw them into a song as a backing track, can I do that? Absolutely you can, and I'm going to show you how to do that as well. Then when you get into more loop orientated stuff, and in fact if you think the little memory stick USB thing that came with your R24 it's got about 1.5 gigs worth of drum loops on the stick, played by a real human drummer, so they actually sound quite natural and stuff. I'm going to show you how you can use them as loops to build a drum part on the R24 and then use that in your project if you don't like the built-in rhythms on the device itself. And then finally I'm going to go on from that and talk about the idea that it's not only drum parts that you can loop, you can actually loop anything you like on the R24 and build a track bit by bit, build a song bit by bit, using, for example, if you have a repetitive bass line in a song, play 2 bars of it and then loop it, and that's just going to play through your whole song. So you can loop anything you record on the R24, can be looped, a section of it or whatever. And as I said, that can include bass parts, keyboard parts, a rhythm guitar part, just like a chord sequence. You know, you can loop that, and then you can play over the top of all your loops with the fiddly lead parts, or indeed your vocal. So just to recap, because I'm going to have to take this very carefully and very methodically in order that it comes across properly and that I understand what I'm saying to you. We're going to break this down into 4 parts. We're going to start off by looking at the easy bit, really, the built-in rhythms on the R24 and how you use them in a song. We're going to look within that at how you can use the built-in ones, but you can also make your own. You can edit them and you know, that kind of thing. We're then going to move on to part 2, or section 2, which is going to look at playing the pads along with your track, your song, and you can play them in real time along with the song, or you can play them in what's called step input, which is where you're filling in little dots on a grid on the screen, so that will trigger the various drum sounds, be it a kick drum, a snare drum, a hi-hat, whatever it might be. Okay, which is why I feel sometimes it's a bit like playing Tetris, doing this. So we're going to look at playing the pads both in real time and using step input mode. We're then going to look at section 3 is going to look at USB loops, the USB stick that you got of the real drum loops played by Peter Erskine, I think it is. And then finally we're going to look at how the principles involved in those loops, those drum loops, can also be applied to any sound you like, anything you record, and how you can loop that and how you can build a song made from those loops. Okay. The other thing I want to say is the final section is going to talk about the sampler function, which is really what I just said about recording a sound and then looping it and messing about with it. Okay. What I was going to say was that it's also important you understand what quantize means, and I'm going to tell you that in a second. And also, if you haven't done so already, check out one of my earlier videos. I can't remember which one, but it is in the title on YouTube, looking at tempo and the metronome function, because I'm not going to rehash all of that for this video. You can go back and look at one of the other videos where I cover that in detail, but you are going to need to appreciate how to set a tempo on the R24, how to play to a click track, and using the metronome settings in the tools menu on the R24. So you're going to need to understand that before you start working with rhythms, and so go back and look at that in a previous video. Quantization, if indeed there is such a word, or the quantize function of the R24. Now, in plain English, and this is important for the rhythms and the beats and all, in plain English, quantize means to line things up. Okay, and I'll go on to explain. If you think of gardening, okay, and you have a little trench dug and you want to sow some seeds, and the instructions on the seed packet say, right, these seeds for ideal growth should be planted 6 inches apart. Okay, so you dig your little trench and you put your piece of string out to get them all lined up. Okay, now you've got a few options here. You can go and just sprinkle those seeds randomly and ignore the instructions, or you can place them roughly 6 inches apart, or you could put a tape measure down or little marks every 6 inches, or in fact you could in 6-inch blocks, or you could do a mark every inch and then just count 6 and put a seed down, right? And quantizing is the audio equivalent of that. What quantizing will do is it will align your beats to match the tempo of the song, so that you're not coming in a shade too late with a kick or a snare. It's lined up exactly with the tempo and the beat of the song. And you can choose in the quantized settings on the R24, and we'll cover this later on, I'll show you how, but you can choose how accurately you want to align your beats, your drum sounds. And it's also like, I'll tell you what it's also like, the snap to grid function in a lot of word processing or design software on computers. You know, if you're clicking and dragging a photo around and you want it, you've got it and it's free floating and you can place it anywhere on the page you want. But you can also turn on a grid on the page, and the photo will only line up with the marks on the grid. It will snap to the grid. Okay, so quantizing can also be seen in that way. It's the audio equivalent of snap to grid. So you decide in the quantized settings on here how fine you want your grid lines. So you can have great big grid lines, square. You could have your drum sounds lining up with a whole bar, or you could have them lining up with beats, or you can have them lining up with fractions of beats, like eighth notes, quarter notes, 16th notes. I think it even was up to 32nd notes. So you can set the definition, whether it's HD or standard definition of your grid in the quantized settings. So you need to appreciate that you don't. Well, the point of telling you this is that you don't need to worry when you're playing the pads, for example, of hitting the pad exactly in the right place on the beat 100%, because if you have the quantized set up properly, it will automatically line you up to the beat with your pad. If you accidentally trigger too soon or too late, it will line up with the exactly on the beat. And equally, if you're looking at an outro or a fill or something like that, and you press the pad to generate a loop of a fill, the pad will wait and wait until the next beat or the next setting on the quantized grid before it triggers the loop. It won't come in the minute it's pressed. It may delay for a fraction of a second to catch it on the right beat, which means you don't have to worry about playing it dead on time. And equally, if you press a pad to stop a loop from playing, it will wait a few seconds, or not even a few seconds, a fraction of a second, until it catches the final beat, and then it will stop. Okay, so I hope I'm not confusing you too much, and I hope I've explained to you there what quantize is in plain English, and how you will use it on here. We'll look at that in a moment. Okay, so the tempo quantize. Yeah, I think that's it for now. I think it's time for me to shut up and move on to the R24 here and go through those sections that I just talked about, starting with the built-in rhythm patterns on the R24, how to access them, how to assign them to tracks, and how to build them and use them in your projects and in your songs. So, as I said, I'm sure up now. Let's go take a look. Okay, folks. So, with much trepidation, I'll try and explain this rhythm function as best I can. So, if we start by looking at this working example on what we have currently on the R24, we've got two tracks here, conveniently enough, tracks 1 and 2. The song is, not that it matters, but the song is Little Lion Man by Mumford & Sons, me on acoustic guitar and vocal, and they're the only two tracks presently in the project. So I've renamed the track over here Lion Man, and I'm using reverb and chorus send effects. Not that that's relevant, I suppose, for this particular example. So if we just play back the raw tracks first of all, just to give you a sense of what we're working with. So tracks 1 and 2. I'm not sure what the levels will be like, but we'll give it a rattle. Obviously there's the guitar on track 1. Okay. Vocal on track 2. And if we look at the counter here, you can see we're up to 11 bars, 12 bars, 13 bars, 14 bars, 15, 16, 17. Waiting for yourself. So the vocal comes in at the top of the bar number 18. Now, at the beginning of this project, I set the tempo of the project to be 130 beats per minute, which is indicated here. I did record to a click track using the metronome function in the tools menu, and if you refer to one of my earlier videos, I explain exactly how to do that. And I say in that video actually that you really should give some consideration when starting a project, depending on what you want to do with it later on, to recording to a click track, because if you lay that down, if you record your, well, in this case your vocal and your guitar parts to the click in time with the tempo of the song that's set for the project, 130 BPM, you're not going to speed up or slow down or get out of sync with that tempo. It makes applying rhythm patterns after the fact much easier. It's probably actually the only way of doing it on the R24, to make sure that everything lines up, because otherwise it'll all be out of sync. So this was recorded to a click, and you'll see from the flashing tempo light when the project's playing that my singing and my guitar parts are in time with the flashing tempo light. I've turned the metronome off for playback, so it's not interrupting the song with a click. But the point is this: I have recorded to a click track, and that click track is 130 BPM. Now, I appreciate there's any number of different ways of doing this. You might want to lay down the drum part first and then record your guitar and vocals over the top, which is a way that I have done it in the past myself. But on this occasion, we're adding the rhythm pattern in after the fact, after the vocal and guitar parts have been laid down, using the one of the inbuilt. For now anyway, I'll show you the other stuff later, but for now just using one of the inbuilt rhythms in the internal memory of the R24, and I think there's something in the region of about 500 of those, ranging from samba and calypso beats to jazz, rock. There's any number of different things in there. You can play with those to your heart's content. So what we're going to do is, to keep things nice and simple, is we're going to add the rhythm track. And don't worry for this example about it sounding any good with the actual song, because the song itself, I'm not picking the rhythm track to suit the song. I'm only picking the rhythm track to demonstrate how you apply it. So don't worry about how it won't sound great, because I'm not going to spend all night choosing the right rhythm for this particular song, or indeed building a rhythm part with fills and so on and so forth. I just want to show you how to apply a basic rhythm, and you can go away and experiment with your own stuff then. So first of all, using one of the inbuilt rhythm tracks on the internal memory of the R24, and we're going to pop it for ease of, so we don't have to keep changing banks with the bank buttons up here. We're going to add it in to track number 3, this one here. Okay, it's also going to add it into track number 4, but I'll tell you why in just a second. And I'm going to add it in at the top of bar 18 when the vocal comes in, because for the sake of this example, that's when I want the rhythm to kick in. So first of all, I need to select what rhythm I want to apply to this track. Now, there's a couple of different ways of doing it. You can do it via this button here, but for now we're going to use the track button, which is this one here, and we're going to hit track, and we're currently looking at track 15. It says so on the screen. The second bank of tracks is selected, and this track here, which is track number 15, on the second bank is lit up. We don't want that one. We want track number 3, if you remember. So if we go back to the first bank of tracks, we're now looking at track 7, and as you know, we can either move along with this button here to track 3, or we can just go ahead and select track 3. And just to confirm, the orange light is lit on track 3, and it says track 3 over here in the on the menu on the on-screen display. So now we need to assign a rhythm pattern to that track, and the way we do that is to yeah, here we go. To select the first option of the menu is take, and at the moment it's set to new take, which means that's currently blank. There's nothing assigned to it. It's ready for a new take, some new audio to be recorded. So if we go ahead and press enter here, we then get presented with a list of options as to what types of files we can assign to that track. The first one is actually called file, and what that means is anything you've recorded, a standard audio file. So it can be from another project, or it can be one of your takes on any of the other tracks. You can reassign it to track number 3. So we're going to skip that. We don't want that one. The second one is what we want for now, which I'll come back to in just a second. But just to make you aware at this point, there is also the loop in brackets USB, which we'll look at later in this video, which refers to the drum loops that come on the USB stick that was included with your device. And then the very last option is other projects, so in other words, files from other projects on the same memory card. So we're going to go up to, so essentially, ladies and gentlemen, these are all the types of files you can assign to a track on the R24, and we're interested in pattern, as in drum pattern or rhythm pattern. So we're going to go up and select pattern and hit enter, and we're then presented with a list of, let me just see exactly how many there are. Yeah, there's around 475, I think there is at the last count. 470. Yeah, there's 471 inbuilt rhythm patterns, and then from 472 all the way down to 510 or something like that. Yeah, so here we go. 510. So there's about 40 blank empty spaces for you to use if you want to design your own rhythm pattern rather than use one of the ones that are built in, or even if you want to use one of the ones that's built in as a base to start, as a template, but just jazz it up a bit, add some fills, add some little accents, whatever it is you might want to do with it, and you can put it in one of these empty slots. And as I say, there's about 35, 40 empty slots waiting for you to fill up with your own stuff. So if we go down to, and at the moment, sorry, I should just say, they're being presented to me in numerical order, starting with rhythm pattern number 000, then 001, 002, 003, and all the way down to 475. And it tells you a brief description next to it of what each of those is. You can also, by using the fourth soft key here, which now has A to Z written above it, you can also sort those in alphabetical order just by toggling that on and off. So it goes numerical order, alphabetical order, and then back to numerical order again. So you can toggle that and have it presented in any way you want. I'm going to leave it as in numerical order. Let's go down and pick one that we like. So let's have a look here. 16-beat, 8-beat. Now you can audition these before you choose one straight from this screen just by hitting the play button. So I'm currently selected rhythm pattern number 20, which is 16-beat number 9, and I'm going to hit play just to hear what it sounds like. Okay, turn that down a little bit actually. So you can pick any one of these and audition it. Listen to it before you choose which one you want. There's a jazz one. Oh dear. And then there's the dance ones. Rock. Here's what I'm into, ladies and gentlemen. So if we have a look at number 35, Rocks 1VA. I'm not sure what that stands for. You may check that out in the manual, because there's probably some explanation as to exactly what that stands for. Let's just have a quick listen by hitting play. So that's quite nice. Okay, it's a standard sort of rock beat. So I'm going to go ahead and select that one because I like it. We're looking at track 3, if you remember. We've gone into the file types and we're looking at patterns, and now we've gone through a few of the patterns. We've auditioned a few. We're settling on number 35, and we're going to hit enter because that's the one we want to choose. And it's now assigned that rhythm pattern, that rock rhythm pattern, to track number 3, but you'll also see track number 4 is lit up as well, and that's because the rhythm patterns in the R24 are stereo tracks, and so it automatically links the adjacent track to the one you've selected where you want to apply the rhythm to give you a stereo pair. Now, I'm going to show you later on, you can make some adjustments to the settings of the stereo placement of your drum kit and the sound of your drum kit. In fact, I should have just shown you that when I was in the menu. If we go back all the way to the beginning, see what we've done. Go into track. We've got tracks 3 and 4 highlighted, which have now been stereo linked for us automatically. We're looking at the first menu item, which says take, and next to that word take is now highlighted pattern, which is telling us a pattern is currently the type of file that's assigned to those pair of tracks at the moment. So we're going to go in, hit enter again on pattern to look at the list like we just did, and we're on number 35. What you can do with those patterns is you can listen back to that rock beat through a number of different drum kits, like an electronic kit, a synth kit, an acoustic kit, a rock kit, various jazz kits. I think there's about 12 or 10 different types of drum kits. So you can even stick with the same pattern but have a different kit sound, and I'll show you that under the rhythm function a little bit later on. So if I go ahead and hit play now on Little Lion Man, by the way, these have lit up orange now, which means that there's a pattern assigned to them. And don't forget what I said in earlier videos, when you're dealing with a stereo pair, it's only the left fader of the pair that has any impact on the volume level. This one does nothing, so you can leave that one down here like that, okay? And we're just working with this one here. So if I go ahead and hit play now, and I'm sticking my neck out here because I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, if I'm being honest, but what should happen is that the song should start playing and the rhythm should start playing right from the top of the song, which is not what I want, and I'll show you how we change that in a moment to come in when we want it to come in by using the track sequencer. But for now, if I just go ahead and hit play, you should hear the rhythm come in right at the very beginning, along with the guitar and then later the vocal. There you go. Okay, so thankfully that behaved as I expected it to behave, and we're now up to bar 18 of our track. You may have seen me then just hit the mark button just to lay down a marker, the first marker in the song, for when the vocal kicks in, so we've not got to keep listening to that intro over and over again while I demonstrate the example. So clearly at the minute you can hear we've got the rhythm pattern assigned. You can hear it's perfectly in sync with, other than my ropey guitar playing, it's perfectly in sync with the actual tempo of the guitar playing and the tempo of the volume, because the rhythm pattern we've selected will automatically line up with the BPM that's been set for the project, which on this particular case is 130 BPM. So our next problem, or what we need to know now, is we need to know with this simple rhythm pattern how it will behave in the song, i.e. we don't want it actually to behave as it's currently behaving, coming in at the very beginning. We want it to come in when the vocal starts. So we need to tell the R24 to hold off on the rhythm pattern we've assigned and then kick in at the appropriate time. And the way we do that is use the track sequencer. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Now we can go back into the track menu, and we're looking at track 3 and 4, and it's lit up here as the orange stereo pair. And part way down the menu we can see track sequencer, which is the 4th menu item there. So we'll go ahead and select that, and it brings us into this. I appreciate you may not be able to see that very well on the video, but you'll see it when you try it yourself on your own screen. That brings us into a sequencer grid. And if you remember in my introduction to this video, I did say that using this to me is something similar to constructing a song by playing Tetris, and this is what I meant. Okay, so we're in the track sequencer at the moment. The way the track sequencer is laid out is a grid. Going across the grid from left to right are the measures, in other words the bars, the beats and bars. Okay, and going down the grid from top to bottom are your tracks. So it starts on track number 1 where the cursor is currently flashing, and using the arrow keys we can go down all the way down, and it should be all the way down to 24. Yes, it is. So that takes us all the way down to 24, and that's the track. So at the moment we're partway through the song because we've gone into the track sequencer on bar number 19. Okay, which is where we just stopped the track. So we've got a few options here. We can go up until the 19 starts flashing as it is doing now, then we can use the jog wheel and pick whatever bar we want, or we can go across to, what does that do? Oh, ignore that. That tells us the size of our rhythm pattern, how long it lasts for, and the time signature as well next to it. So if we go back, we can look at which bar in the track we want to start looking at, and this cursor's moving backwards and forwards as I move the jog wheel, and the bar number is going up and down as I move the jog wheel. Or we can come back down onto the grid with the cursor that's flashing now in the middle of the grid, and we can just simply move around the grid left and right and up and down with the arrow keys here. Now what we want to do, I think what we said was bar number 18, so is when the vocal comes in. So let's have a look. There's the top of bar 18, and track 3 and 4. I'm currently lit up on track 3 on bar 18. That's where we want the rhythm to come in. Now, again, with two different ways of placing that rhythm pattern into the track sequencer in the place that we want it to come in on the song. We can do what's called real-time recording into the track sequencer, or we can do step input where we literally place dots and markers where we want it to appear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to where are we now? Sorry, back to bar 18. It says here track 3 and 4. I'm going to try hitting record and play, and the track sequencer tells me it's now recording, and the timer is running on from bar 18, which is where we actually started. What I'm going to do, I'm going to hit stop, go back to the beginning of the song using the normal shortcut, which is stop, hold down stop and hit rewind, and we're back to bar 1 at the very top of the song. Now I'm going to try that again, only this time I'm going to use the pads here to bring the rhythm part in when I want it to be brought in, and have it going off when I want it off, and at the same time record that into the track sequencer. Just one thing to say before I do that, we need to set the behaviour of the pads and how they respond when I touch them, because they've got 3 different functions. So if we go to still within the track menu, still looking at tracks 3 and 4 here, there's one of the menu commands there which says pad, and at the minute it's set to gate. Using the jog wheel we can go 1 shot, or we can go repeat. Now gate is for as long as the pad is pressed down, it will play the rhythm pattern. Repeat is it will keep looping and repeating that rhythm pattern over and over again until we tell it to stop. And 1 shot is it will play the rhythm pattern once through. If it's, say for example, as a lot of these are, if it's a 2-bar or a 4-bar rhythm pattern, it'll play it for those 4 bars and then stop if you select 1 shot. And you can do it again and again with 1 shot. You can keep playing it throughout the song. So I'm going to select gate for the behaviour of the pad for track 3 and 4. I hope this makes sense. I'm going to go back into the track sequencer, okay, and I'm now going to hit, I'm going to go back to the top of the song, and I'm going to hit record and play, and then when I get to bar 18 I'm going to hit the pads play the rhythm for 2 or 3 bars or whatever it is, and then stop it, and then go back and then play the track through and see if that's recorded into it. So holding down record now, hit play, and we're off and running, and it says now recording, and it's counting up through the bars here. I'm going to hold this button here down, and then when I'm ready to come in with the rhythm, I'm going to hit this button here on track 3 to bring it in. We're up to bar 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, and it's still recording, and I'm going to hit stop. So you'll see now, and to be quite honest with you folks, I think certainly my advice to you is this is only going to become clear when you get your hands dirty. Certainly if your brain works the same as mine, if you get your hands dirty, get stuck in, start playing around with the track sequencer and the record functions, and you'll begin to get a grasp on how this is working. You can now see, for example, on the track sequencer, and you won't see it on this window particularly, but you'll see it on your when you do it yourselves, that it's now put down little markers wherever it's recorded data into the grid. And on our example, it's from bar 18 all the way up to bar right now. Where is it there? Bar 25. So what's that? 7 bars or thereabouts. Okay, so we've got 7 bars of data written into the track sequencer on tracks 3 and 4, and being as that rhythm pattern is assigned to tracks 3 and 4, that's what's gone into the sequencer. So if we come out of that now, exit, and exit again, back to the beginning, we're going to hit play, and what should happen now is everything I've just done should be ignored and not work. And the reason for that is because the track sequencer is not currently switched on. You have to switch it on in order for it to take effect. So I'm going to leave it switched off and show you what happens if you don't have it engaged. So go back to the top of the song, hold down stop, press rewind, hit play. There you go. Same as before, it's coming in at the beginning of the song, which is not what we want. We've told it in the track sequencer we want it to come in at bar 18 and play for 7 bars, but it's not doing as it's told. And the reason is because although we've recorded the data into the track sequencer and it's sitting there waiting to be read, we don't have the track sequencer currently switched on. So this button here, the 4th soft key, which above it now says track sequencer, is a toggle switch effectively between track sequencer on or track sequencer off. So whether or not you want to engage or not the track sequencer function. So we've set it up, we've recorded data into the track sequencer, now we want to engage it, and it comes up on the screen track sequencer on, and the track sequencer menu item sort of goes with a white background to indicate it's switched on. I'll sound a word of caution here that if you start finding, after you've messed about with this, some irregular playback behaviour with your R24, first thing you should check is you haven't accidentally left the track sequencer switched on, because it's quite a common mistake to make, that you'll be messing about with this and then you'll forget about it, start doing other things, and then it won't behave itself, and you can't work out why. And the reason is because that's switched on. So turn that off if you want the device just to behave without the track sequencer engaged. So let's have a look now. What should happen is we'll go back to the top of the song, and now instead of playing the rhythm part immediately once the song starts, it will look to the track sequencer to tell it when to start the rhythm part, and as you know, that's bar 18. So if I hit play now, what should happen is you just get the guitar and vocal up to bar 18, then the rhythm pattern join the guitar and vocal for 7 bars, and then go off again and back to just the vocal and the guitar. So fingers crossed, and here we go, let's hit play. All good so far. We're on up to bar 12 now, not long.
for taking all the courage you have left.
So you can see what's happened there. It's behaved exactly as we wanted it to behave. It came in on bar 18, which is when the vocal started. It went off on bar 25 or thereabouts, which is what we told it to do in the track sequencer. We've engaged the track sequencer here on the main menu screen, so it's telling the R24 use whatever data we've put into the track sequencer in order to play that back. Now, I'm not sure whether that's been clear or whether it's been confusing, or whether it's made matters worse or not. But I'm going to draw a line under this very shortly and show you other ways to insert loops and rhythms and to input data on the track sequencer. What I am going to point out is that you can record more data into the track sequencer on different tracks, come down the grid a bit and use, you know, tracks 5 and 6 or 7 and 8 or all the way up to 24. So you could line up effectively your rhythm patterns in the track sequencer and have it flicking between tracks 3 and 4 with a rock beat to tracks 7 and 8 with it could be a fill, for example, or it could be a calypso beat or a samba beat or whatever it might be. And whatever you've put into the track sequencer, as long as this is engaged here on the home screen, then it will play back in that order and it will come in and out as you've set it to do in the sequencer screen. Okay. The other thing to be aware of is that in a similar way to rhythm patterns, if you go into the track menu and go back up to the take options, and you remember we looked there at the 4 different types of files that can be assigned to a track: audio files, patterns, built-in rhythm patterns, loops from the USB stick, or files from other projects. That if you assign let's explain this another way. If we go back a step, okay. If we go down to the second menu item, you'll see there's a loop function. Now, it's not letting us select that at the minute because it won't let you loop the inbuilt rhythm patterns. But if we pick another set of tracks to look at, so we'll look at track 5, which is blank at the minute. At the minute, the take is set to audio, and if there was anything on there, we could go in and have a look at the loop function. And what I'm trying to explain not very clearly is that you can use the track sequencer to line up loops of anything you record. So that could be, for example, a guitar riff, it could be a bass line, and if you set that up in the correct way here using the loop function and record that data into the track sequencer so you're getting it in the order that you want, you can build up very easily and very quickly an entire song structure using the track sequencer through only playing a 2-bar bass line or a 4-bar guitar riff. And you can loop that and have it repeatedly playing over and over. Or you can have it coming in on the 4th bar and going off on the 10th bar and then coming back in again later on using the track sequencer in the same way that I showed you with the inbuilt rhythm patterns.